She's Kylen Mills. I'm Cyrus Saatsaz. I'm not homeless, I promise. And this is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50+ infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's Jase, Jase, medical.com. You can follow Kylen Mills on all social media platforms, including Twitter, Instagram, not Threads yet. I'm still trying to persuade you to get an account there, but you're everywhere else at your name. It's super easy, Kylen Mills. You can follow me on Threads at Dog Wild, and you can follow the program on Twitter. Follow the program on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. Kylen, how are you doing? Good to see you after our awesome Kevon Looney interview. How are you? How have you been?
Doing good, Cy. Ready for Warriors basketball to officially begin. Hi, Nicole. Hi, Ernie. Zolas, what's up?
Yeah.
Tim Ford, thanks for joining us. We got a good crew coming in here on a Wednesday night. We got a lot to cover in this episode. I think the GM poll was definitely interesting. A couple topics that adhere to the Warriors. I'm excited to get into. The Nuggets play the most fun basketball, according to the GM poll. I don't know if you agreed with that, Cy, but we're going to break all that down. But doing well and excited to get into it.
Absolutely. I don't even know what that means, fun basketball. But first of all, do you know, I don't get this chat post from Ernie Hernandez. Who's Jeremy Lamb? Do you know who that is? Is that a player? I don't even get that.
I assume it's some kind of reference to Anthony Lamb.
Maybe. That's all I was thinking, but I don't get it.
But he got the name wrong? That's
Elaborate on that, Ernie, just because I'm very curious about what that means. But Kylen, you're absolutely right. You brought up the GM poll. This is a poll that's taken every year by, I believe, the NBA. And again, it's anonymous, so you don't know who exactly is saying what in these polls. But this is the 22nd annual NBA GM survey. And the GMs of the NBA are basically asked questions like, who do you think is going to win the title? Who do you think is the best point guard? Who do you think is the best small forward? It's a wide variety of questions, 50 of them more specifically pertaining to best teams, players, etc., offseason moves. The GMs are not allowed to vote for their own team or personnel either, which is considerably relevant. So now, and this caught my eye because right off the bat, when you look at the predictions, for example, for the first one I want to bring up is which team will win the 2024 NBA Finals. And in fact, here, I'll share my screen so people can visually see this as well. Did Ernie explain, by the way, who Jeremy Lamb is? Or no, never mind. Okay, well, I'll move on from that. I was a little surprised by a lot of these answers, Kylen. I don't know if you were as well. But there's a tie for first among the GM survey that between the Boston Celtics and the Denver Nuggets. They both got 33% of the vote. I'll make that a little bigger. And then the Milwaukee Bucks are third at 23% of the vote. And then the Phoenix Suns and the LA Clippers round out the top 5. I mean, never mind the fact that the Warriors were excluded altogether from this. They didn't get any votes in terms of winning a championship, but the Suns and Clippers getting votes ahead of the Lakers as well. This is just lunacy to me. Let's start with this one right here. Do you think this is a fair representation? Do you think this is absolutely asinine like I do? What are your thoughts, Kylen, on the GMs and their answer regarding who's going to win the title this year?
My first surprise, or I guess my first reaction of surprise, starts at the top of this poll. I'm shocked that the Milwaukee Bucks aren't up there with the Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
They had the best record in the NBA last season during the regular season. Granted, obviously their season was cut short and they were disappointing in the postseason, but still that roster is pretty much back, and they just made the blockbuster trade to bring in Damian Lillard. So, I mean, to me, I'm shocked that they aren't up there now, and that it's instead the Celtics and Denver Nuggets that are 10% ahead of the Bucks. I would flip-flop, maybe the Celtics and Bucks. I know the Celtics are still up there as the Celtics and Bucks as favorites to win the East, but I'm just surprised that the Bucks are a not too distant, but a relatively distant third. And then the Suns and Clippers. Yeah, I think the Clippers maybe is the biggest surprise to me to be on there at 5th. You mentioned ahead of the Lakers. I will say it doesn't entirely surprise me that the Warriors are being overlooked a little bit this season, because I don't think people outside the organization realize how much better the Warriors got in the offseason from the role players they added. We've talked about it that, a lot of people outside the Warriors, and you mentioned you talk to friends or just like people in passing that have been like, oh yeah, other people even within the Locked On podcast network and other hosts, oh yeah, the Warriors aren't going to be any good this season, or at least similar to how they were last season, right around 500, maybe squeaking into the postseason. And I don't think people realize just how much better the Warriors got from a season ago. Yes, it's the same, maybe top 6 players, but I think that the Warriors got so much better by adding Chris Paul, especially with the way that the fit has been lately, having Gary Payton II now available for a full season. I think Saric will be a great addition. I do think he looked a little bit slow in that first preseason game, but he could still possibly come around. The young players on the Warriors got better. Brandon Pajemski, we saw, looked really good. They've got some exciting new rookies. So to me, the Warriors got a lot better, but I could see that other folks around the league who aren't paying close enough attention and aren't following closely enough might overlook them. So not a huge shock, but I do think the Warriors should have been there ahead of the Clippers, if nothing else, in that poll.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly. This poll is, look, I've expressed my opinions about a lot of things on the show. Obviously, I've expressed the fact that I feel like a lot of people who are on the media side of this industry really shouldn't be, just because when they express their opinions, when they talk, it's mostly just nonsense. A lot of what I hear from individuals in sports media indicates to me that they just don't understand the sport they're covering. But the more egregious part of all this is the amount of incompetency at the NBA GM level, which is, again, who is surveyed here. The NBA conducted this survey. Bruce Morrow, by the way, is asking when the Warriors won their last championship back in 2022, did they have votes? I don't have that information on me right now, but my guess is no, because I remember.
I would assume not. Yeah.
Yeah. And but look, there are a lot of NBA GMs who really have no idea what they're doing. And, case in point, I'm not going to mention names, because I feel like the moment names are dropped, that's when the drama comes in, and I get a lot of unnecessary, or maybe necessary, but a lot of negative attention that I don't like. I don't want it. So I won't mention the name, but there was a story written fairly recently about a certain NBA GM and how he promoted one of his buddies that he was roommates with in college, who never played the game himself, who has barely any experience or knowledge of the game of basketball. And this person is now like one of the head scouts for an NBA team. And that kind of nepotism isn't just like family. It's just, nepotism is defined as just someone getting opportunities because of who they know, basically, because of connections, and not necessarily because of your expertise or your experience or your background. And when it comes to NBA GMs, I really feel like this survey, as we go through it, is a perfect example of just how many individuals out there are running the show when they damn well should not be. What this also tells me is, I don't know if you remember Kylen last year when the Warriors won the championship, all of a sudden you had a lot of people picking them to repeat, right? I think you and I were the skeptics because we actually know what we're talking about. Sorry, I'm not sounding arrogant saying that, but we cover this team. We pay attention and we know athletics a little bit. And you and I were huge skeptics last year of the Warriors just because they were thinner. They lost pieces from a year before. And once again, now 2 years removed from the World Championship, the media is back to doing the same thing again, where they're exposing themselves, although in this case it's GMs, but most media members as well are not picking the Warriors to win a title or giving them much of a chance. I mean, I'm seeing, some confidence in them, but certainly no one picking them to win the title. I'm not seeing that. And I really feel good about this team this year. I feel borderline great about them. Just like you said, I was part of that panel for Locked On a couple of weeks ago, and some of our colleagues were saying that they might be worse this year. No, this Warriors team is drastically better this year. Never mind Dario Saric. Never mind, the Trace Jackson Davis, a terrific draft pick. We're talking Kuminga and Moody in year 3, likely getting real minutes. We're talking about a team that got size again. We're talking about a team that spent the entire offseason, a much longer offseason, with an opportunity to train and focus on winning a chip. Whereas after when they won the championship last year, they were just partying all summer. It was a short offseason. So my point is, we're going to go through this. I'm sorry I'm rambling here on a tangent, I guess, but a lot of people just have no idea what the hell they're talking about. And this poll is a perfect example of that. And I've been talking a lot. Kylen, I'm going to defer to you when we come back from giving some love to a sponsor. But this is going to be crazy in terms of these poll results because, again, it's the disrespect is very real. I don't think Phoenix is a better team than the Warriors right now. Do you? Like, what is your stance on Phoenix? Like, do you think the Warriors are better than them? Do you have a thought on that, Kylen?
No, I don't think Phoenix is better than the Warriors. It remains to be seen if that team can even stay healthy. I mean, that's the biggest thing to me that ended up, hurting them last season. But when we come back from this break, I looked up the GM poll from the 2021-22 season where the Warriors won, and it was so bad. I can't wait to read this. It is so bad. Like the East, the West, it is hysterical. So that'll put in some context how much the GMs usually get right when this preseason poll happens. But first, I know we got to give some love to the folks that support this program that we appreciate.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for doing that research. I cannot wait to hear what you found. For now, though, we're going to start with giving some love to Jase Medical. Again, the premise is very simple. I want to get Zolas's comment out of there so Jase gets the attention they need. There we go. Okay, so the Jase case. That's what this client is all about. Look, anyone who lives in a home is very well aware of the fact that natural disasters can strike. If you're in California, we've got earthquakes. Now we got fires. I don't remember fires being an issue when I was a kid, but yeah, it's a problem now. And wherever you are in this country, whether it's natural disasters, whether it's just a health scare, you can never predict when your health is going to fail you or give you issues. Might be just a simple accident at home where you might need bandages or gauze or disinfectant, whatever it is. You need a medical kit at home. And this is where Jase really steps up because not only do they provide the essentials that you need that you could probably find in a medical kit at your local grocery store or drugstore, but they also provide 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. And all it takes to get a Jase case is to fill out a simple online form. And in some cases, you might have to jump on a quick call with one of their sports certified physicians and get ongoing care from their physicians on any treatment-related questions as well. Part of getting a Jase case is access to medical experts. It's doctor created, it's doctor recommended. Don't be caught unprepared. Jase handles everything from online evaluations to licensed pharmacy, medication delivery, and ongoing consultation and care. And right now, get $20 off these life-saving antibiotics today from Jase Medical by using the code LOCKEDON at checkout at jasemedical.com. That's Jase, Jase, medical.com.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. For the everydayers, stay tuned. Greg Silver is going to join me on tomorrow night's show. And then Friday night, I'm going to go live immediately following the second preseason game of the season. This time the Warriors are in LA. And I have Trice High, a fantastic documentarian. He's releasing a 5-part Stephen Curry documentary that I was very fortunate to be a part of. 2 parts of them are currently released. He's releasing part 3, and he's going to join me on the show Friday night, as well as Sophia Jones. Kylen, you're familiar with her, Mark Jones's daughter. She's been a guest of this program. She plays for San Jose State. She's also going to join the show and offer her expertise on the Warriors, again, following Friday night's game. You can follow Kylen Mills on all social media platforms at Kylen Mills. And what have you found? What did the GM survey reveal in 2021?
Yeah, so this is hysterical. The 2021-22 GM survey, the GMs picked the Brooklyn Nets to win the 2022 NBA Finals. Second was the Lakers, who did not even make the postseason. And then third was the Bucks, which, okay, I could see it. Warriors, not even in the picture. After the Lakers, it was the Clippers, Nuggets, Mavs, Portland Trailblazers, Utah Jazz, Golden State, and Phoenix rounded out like the top 8 or 10 or whatever. But they were not even like on the radar. And you know who else wasn't on the radar? Was the Celtics. So that is hysterical to me. Actually, looking at how they projected the Eastern Conference rankings, they had Brooklyn as the favorites to win the East, then Bucks, Heat, Philadelphia, Atlanta Hawks, and then Boston. So this projection had Boston finishing 6th in the East, had the Warriors finishing 5th. They weren't even in the top 5. Neither of those teams were in the top 5 anticipated to win the NBA Finals. They ended up going toe-to-toe with a great series for the championship. So I just thought that put an interesting perspective on how much the GMs typically get right, and kind of what you were pointing out in terms of, you know, how much to put into some of these preseason polls. But it's fun to talk about.
Oh, hell yeah, it really is.
But I think, you know what, one thing I do want to say is, I think someone mentioned it in the comments as well, that I think it's good motivation for the Warriors. I don't think they're a team that thrives on being the favorites. I mean, when you look at how they came in, I mean, yes, they got it done, of course, when Kevin Durant was on the team and they were just massive, you know, favorites. But I do think they're a team that thrives playing with a chip on their shoulder. And I think they're a team that embraces, I don't want to say an underdog, because you still have the Splash Brothers. You still have elite players. Draymond, one of the best defenders in the NBA. So I don't want to say like a total underdog, and they're still just one season removed from their most recent. But you know what I mean? Playing with a chip on their shoulder. I think they like being overlooked. I think they're a team that embraces being underestimated. So I do think that the more people that trash the Warriors or that overlook them, say they got worse, et cetera, don't put them into the playoff picture or, you know, the legitimate NBA Finals race, like, good. To me, good. More fuel for the fire.
Absolutely. I just love the way you said that.
Sola said they love to hunt. And, like, that's exactly it. Like, the Warriors, I think they like to hunt.
Yeah. And
I think last season, coming off the final, they struggled with the target on their back. You know, that was a big part of it. Every team last season was getting up to play the Warriors, and they just couldn't quite get it together and bring it every single night. I think they're going to embrace teams overlooking how much better they got from a season ago.
You're absolutely right. And you know, and it's funny, or not funny, but we had Kevon Looney on the show a day or so ago, and one thing he said in that interview, which it stuck in my head because it's very true. It's not discussed much. But Looney mentioned that the Warriors like other teams to be forced to play their style of basketball. Mm-hmm. And that's one aspect of the small ball thing with Kerr, which I don't think is discussed enough. And it is, I think, an important variable in terms of why he prefers these sometimes smaller lineups that are faster, that are more versatile. And I agree wholeheartedly that if you're forcing other teams to play your style, which the Warriors do all the time. How often when the Warriors play, do you see the other teams stick with their big lineups, right? The Lakers did it in the conference semifinals last year, and that's probably a huge reason why they won, no pun intended. But for the most part, the Warriors force other teams to go small. And the moment those teams do that, it's almost like the Warriors have them in their web. It's like, it's done. The hunt's over, and they've conquered the foe. And that's what I see with the Phoenix Suns, for example. The Phoenix Suns to me look like they're replicating the Warriors style. And when you're trying to copy someone else, you're never going to match the best. I feel like the Warriors have a huge advantage there. And thanks for doing the research on that poll. That it's phenomenal. I'm really feeling good about this Warriors team. I know it's early and health is going to play a huge part in this. A couple other things real fast in the poll. Anything you want to add to that? I'm sorry, before I jump back.
Go ahead. Yeah, let's move on.
All right, so a couple others in this poll real quick. Where are we on the clock? Okay, so this one is not that big of a deal, but I did find it interesting that they were asked if you were starting a franchise today and could sign any player in the NBA, who would it be? Now, I don't feel like this is a huge slight to Stephen Curry, who I do want to add, by the way, as well, has admitted publicly that he hears all the noise. Like, he has people literally telling him every piece of hateful content that is published, and he takes it in and uses it as fuel, similar to what Michael Jordan did, as he revealed in The Last Dance. So they are reading all this stuff, and this could very easily be motivation. But this one I don't think is that big of a deal, but I just wanted to see if that was just me. I wanted to know if your perspective is similar in that maybe Steph wasn't in the top 5 because of his age. He does turn 36 on March 14th, I believe. What are your thoughts on this one real fast in terms of starting a franchise? Do you agree with this? Who would you go with?
First thing that popped in my mind was just that Steph's age would be the biggest factor, one would assume, in keeping him off or just off the top 5 in this list of which player you would. I feel like if you rewound the clock 5 years, Steph should be at the top of this poll. I mean, even, at 30, he still had so many years of life left. But now approaching his mid-30s, I think it's a little bit harder to justify starting a franchise and building around him because he's aging out and he's really starting to slow down. So that's the only reason why I could think, and it's not a huge deal to me. A little bit surprised, Wemby was right up there at second, Nikola Jokic at first. So dominantly was the one thing that surprised me. But Wemby, I feel like, is any GM's dream to start a franchise around because he is just beginning his career and, is supposed to be the next big thing. So not a huge surprise in terms of that poll.
Totally. And this one did show love to Stephen Curry. The question was asked, which player forces opposing coaches to make the most adjustments? Clearly, Nikola Jokic rose up in this ranking, but good to see Stephen Curry still taking the top of the list. 40% of GM said Stephen Curry. The gravity he attracts is obvious. He is the most lethal shooter in the history of this game. Any thoughts, Kylen, on this aspect of the poll where Steph was first for the player that forces opposing coaches to make the most adjustments?
This is not a huge surprise.
Yeah.
I will say I would expect Nikola Jokic to be right there with Steph because he is also a player that just has a very unique skill set. Jokic does with his size, his handling ability, his passing ability is the one thing to me that stands out. Jokic is really good at playing team basketball, will pass up his own shots to set up teammates, which to me makes him very difficult to guard because you have to have a player who's big, but he also can take you on out in the perimeter. So he draws bigs out. So it can't be a slow big. His passing range and ability to do that, I feel like just makes him hard to defend because he also so good at setting up teammates. He does like ridiculous behind the back passes. Like he's insane. So to me, Jokic is right there with Steph. No surprise in terms of that poll, but Steph much deserved to be at the top. I mean, greatest 3-point shooter in the game. He's at the point in his career where he does things that you don't know how it goes in the hoop. I mean, his range is unbelievable. He can do it off the dribble. He can do it on the catch and shoot. I mean, he can do it spinning around with his eyes closed. I mean, there's just, when Steph is on, there truly is no way to stop him. And then, you overplay him outside, he will drive to the hoop. He also has, developed his passing abilities as well. But Steph Curry covers a ton of ground on the floor. He's a hard guy to guard. And how do you shut down one of the greatest shooters of all time? So, I think the poll was spot on.
Absolutely. Steph got 40% of the vote in that category. Nikola Jokic, 33. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 13. Luka Doncic, 10. Steph also easily won the poll question, who is the best point guard in the NBA. He got 63% of the vote. It's still weird to me that Luka Doncic is being called a point guard. He got 2% of the vote with, he got second most votes with 27%. And then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander listed as a point guard. He was third. Damian Lillard rounding out that list. Here's some sound. Steve Kerr, I'm glad someone asked this, was asked about the fact that zero GMs, not one, zero GMs picked the Warriors to win the title this year. Which again is just stunning to me. It's pretty wild. So here is Steve Kerr's reaction to that.
The annual GM survey came out today, and the Warriors got no love for championship possibility. How do you like that?
I don't care. Makes no difference.
Being a non-favorite,
Yeah, I mean it never did anything for me when people picked us, and it doesn't do anything for me that they don't. So it's just stuff, interesting stuff for fans to read, but, nothing that helpful or harmful to us, and definitely not any bulletin board material. I'm not posting that on the locker room wall. No GMs picked us to win the title. How does that make you feel, fellas? I don't think anybody cares.
I don't know about that, Coach. I think he's being modest. And being a little diplomatic saying that. Any final thoughts, Kylen, before we move on from the poll? I think we covered most of the big ones.
I mean, I think Steve Kerr is saying something about the GMs if he's saying that, similar to what you pointed out in terms of I feel like he was saying between the lines, like, what do GMs know? Nobody cares. Nobody cares what they think. Nobody cares who they think is going to win. Okay, Steve. But I do, even though he didn't come out and say it, I do think the team enjoys being underestimated and enjoys playing with a chip on their shoulder. I'm excited to see this team surprise some folks. And that's exactly what they did in the 2021-22 season when they won their most recent NBA championship. So I wouldn't be surprised if they, overperformed this year as well.
Absolutely. And Bruce Morrow, thank you for the love. Yes, please hit that like button and that subscribe button for the program. Bruce also said Steph is 35. That is correct. As I mentioned before, he turns 36, I believe, on March 14th. I don't know if that makes me a psychopath for knowing his birthday. We're going to talk about Klay Thompson in just a moment because Klay conducted an interview with The Athletic where he revised a lot of comments, very different than what he was saying. His tone has changed quite a bit. And if you're hoping for Klay to be a lifer with the Warriors, you might be encouraged by what he had to say. First, got to give some love to the FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the NFL, the NBA, you name it. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's it. Place $5 and you get 200 in bonus bets, which is as good as cash on the app, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, OUs, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season where my 49ers are 5-0. They're looking damn good. I honestly believe, Kylen, this is the best Niners team I've seen since the 94 team with Steve Young. I think this is the best version. I'm hyped. What do you think about that statement I just made? That's a bold statement, I think.
It's a bold statement, but I think the 49ers are the best team in the NFL. I don't think it's close. I think if they stay healthy, this team better be playing in a Super Bowl. Winning a Super Bowl, it's very difficult to do, but I think they should be the favorites to win it all. They're the best, most complete team by far.
And and I believe they've covered.
Put your money on the Niners and use FanDuel to do it.
Absolutely, I believe they've covered the spread every week. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
One final segment, wrapping things up here. You can follow Kylen Mills on all social media platforms at her name. It's super easy, at Kylen Mills. You can follow me on threads at Dog Wild. Kylen, Klay Thompson did an interview with Anthony Slater of The Athletic, a fine journalist. Respect tremendously the work he does. And Klay certainly changes tune. Among many things he said in the interview is the fact that he is not asking for a max deal. He's actually pulling back on that. Adrian Wojnarowski reported back in April that Klay was expecting a deal at or near the max, which in the final year would have paid him close to $70 million as he was turning 38. And he's resigned a bit based on the tone of this interview to the reality that he's probably not going to get an offer like that. And he's now changing the tone of his language and his attitude. Maybe, I don't know. I can't tell attitude really from an interview in print, but he's now saying he's willing to take less. And the Warriors have made offers to him. We don't know the amounts, but it clearly was not enough to make Klay happy. We don't know if he's going to sign an extension or if he's going to wait until next offseason to be a free agent. I personally love the concept of Klay Thompson entering a free agent contract year for the simple reason that with most athletes, you're motivated. You know that if you play well, you got that big deal waiting in front of you. And that if you perform poorly, it's the adverse effect. What are your thoughts on Klay's tune changing a bit here?
It's definitely a positive step in the right direction. When reports were out there that Klay was wanting a max deal, I think there was quite a bit of cringing amongst Dub Nation because there needs to be some self-awareness of the fact that he has not come back and completely performed at the same level as he did pre-injury. He is a fantastic player. That is no knock on Klay. He is still, has the ability. And I think that something he said on Media Day really resonated in that he's pursuing getting back to being an all-star guard level. He still has the ability to shoot. Can he get there and put it all together now? That's the big question. Shooting ability doesn't go away. So I think a lot still is left to be proven in this season for Klay, which should be a ton of motivation. You add in the money, but I think at the point last season where he was saying he was expecting a max deal raised a lot of eyebrows, because at the time he wasn't performing great. Last season he was a little bit up and down. There were definitely games where it felt like he was pushing. He felt like he was forcing, his shots when creating shots off the dribble wasn't super effective, needed to be more efficient. But I thought his defense came along nicely, and he still did some things well. He was just very up and down. So to me, the way he played last year didn't warrant a max deal. Yeah. I would love to be wrong, and who knows? He comes out and he could be the team MVP this season, and he's an all-star, and maybe suddenly that number goes up. But I think it's a big positive if he's willing to work with less to return to the Warriors, because I think it should absolutely be a focus to keep this core together as long as possible, or at least as long as they can ride it out. And it's something that Joe Lacob has talked about and openly said, that they are not wanting to break up this core prematurely, or until they really know they're on their last thread. And I think there was a very real potential that not only Steph Curry, but Klay Thompson and Draymond Green could retire Warriors, which to me would just add to the legend, would just make this entire run so much more special, because you do not see players in the NBA today, more than one player, especially if it was Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, who are so loyal to an organization, and who an organization also in turn values so highly that they keep them around and keep those players happy and continue to win over such a long period of time. I personally think that would be the icing on the cake of this Warriors legacy, of Steph Curry's legacy, of all of their legacies. If they were to stay with the Warriors, if they got one more championship, oh man, that would be just unbelievable. Cherry on top. But I think for all of them to stay Warriors, if they win one more, man, this is going to go down as one of the best runs of all time, if not the best of all time, at least in this era of NBA basketball. Yeah. What do you think about the possibility, Cy, of Klay Thompson retiring a Warrior? Is that something you'd like to see happen, or that you think is realistic?
Yes, I well, based off the tone of his recent language, it does seem very realistic. And of course, I'd absolutely love that. I mean, Kylen, it must have hurt a little bit when he saw Michael Jordan come back and play for the Wizards, right? Because 1 minute he was a life. And if we ever saw Kobe play in another uniform, I'm sure that would sting a little bit for Laker fans. Yeah, I don't want to see. I mean, look, Steph is, I think, at the pendulum, right? I mean, he's the one you want to keep for life without question. Draymond looks like he's locked in for the rest of his career, and if you can get that triumvirate all together as lifers, I'm sorry. I mean, we're going to be telling our grandkids about this someday. It's sports. It's the stuff that legends do. Is this type of run, and and again, the story had some interesting anecdotes within it. Like Anthony Slater, I believe, used the word reasonable in defining the amount that Klay's looking for. Klay reportedly doesn't want to compromise the Warriors, pushing them into the second tax apron and those kind of punitive levels of spending. The article did say he's most likely going to sign the extension during this season, which is interesting, and that the amount could be similar to what Andrew Wiggins makes. So Wiggins is what, 25 a year? Is that I'm drawing a kind of a blank on that right now. I'll look it up real fast.
Older than 25 now, but late 20s, maybe 26, 27, close.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up real fast. While I do that, I want to wrap up the show, because a few people on social media were asking me about Kai Jones, who basically forced his release from the Charlotte Hornets, former first-round pick. I believe he was number 19, played for Texas. The dude is big. He brings size. He's 6'11", but as I told them, and I'll tell the audience now, I don't think the Warriors are going to sniff that. I don't think they're going to touch that. They're so focused on chemistry, and so far from what I'm hearing and from what all of us are seeing with our own eyes, I know it's only one game, but there's also reports daily from practice, from beat reporters and so forth, that the chemistry of this team is looking and feeling damn good. I don't think the team is going to sacrifice that. We heard from Looney on this show a day or so ago that, and this has been echoed by other players and coaches and management, that they're comfortable with this team in terms of what they put together. If Rudy Gay ends up being that 14th player, that's another sort of big. I mean, he looks big out there. I'd be happy with him as their 14th player. I don't know if they need it. I understand people wanting it, But I don't know if that distraction is going to be welcomed. I don't think the Warriors entertain the idea of Kai Jones. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think he would be the right move for the Warriors at this point. I mean, they already have had a struggle in marrying the veterans and the young players last season and trying to figure out how to make it all mesh, combining, hey, we're running out of, years with this Warriors core. We need a team that can compete now while also trying to develop, trying to shape the young players. I mean, Jonathan Kuminga, like hanging his head on the court was like the biggest uproar amongst Dub Nation, the Warriors, let alone some of the antics that have been going on with Kai Jones. I mean, the whole tweet thing where he tweeted that he wanted out and whatever else, like there definitely was some strange behavior. Someone else pointed out the IG thing was very weird. I watched some of the clip from his Instagram live, and that was one thing that raised a lot of eyebrows, is that he definitely seemed under the influence of some type of substance. Hope the best for him. Don't know exactly what was the case, but certainly he was acting very strange on an Instagram live. There could be more going on there off the court. I think a young player, possibly with some off-court issues, is the last thing the Warriors need to add to the mix, regardless of wanting to add the size and all that. Like you mentioned, Looney pointed it out. Multiple players have talked about it here early on in the season, that the chemistry is super high and that everything's been going really well. Like, why add a possible risk factor into the mix?
Absolutely. Andrew Wiggins, by the way, courtesy of Spot Track, is going to make $24 million this year, 26, and then 28. And then he has a player option in 2026, 27. When he will be 31 years old for $30 million. So it comes out to about 27 a year. It seems, yeah, okay, sure. What? All right. Are we good? Are we done? Anything else?
Yeah.
We covered everything? You're in Illinois, by the way. I had no idea until you told me before the show started.
Yep. This is my background in Illinois in my parents' basement. So hi, everyone from Illinois.
Well, folks, thank you for joining us. Kylen, a pleasure as always. Thank you to everyone. We'll be back at this tomorrow night with Greg Silver. Until then, find happiness. Be happy. Bye-bye.
Peace out, Girl Scout.